Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today I'm joined by Cullen of Centerfield Media as we will be discussing 5 key things that the Texas Rangers need to do to get back to the World Series.
Hello, everyone. I'm super excited to be on the channel and talk about Texas Rangers.
All right, so getting right into the list, the first thing that they need to work on is pitching. And actually, the other video we did on Cullen's channel kind of gets into this some as well as a little bit later in this video. But really, it just goes without saying you can't win any ball games unless you have good pitching. You know, you could score 1,000 runs, but if you give up 1,001, you're going to lose every game. So they got to work on that. And it's really always been an issue for the Rangers, more or less. They've never really been a good pitching team, but especially in the last decade or so after those World Series years, and then even in the 2015, 2016 little bit era that they had, it's been a big issue.
The second thing that the Rangers need to do to get back to the World Series is build around their slugger, Joey Gallo. Topic might be a little controversial to some people because some Rangers fans that think they need to trade all of their best players. Although Joey Gallo is I think he's a different player. I consider him a franchise player, and I think other organizations around the MLB would view him the same way. Although, I mean, Gallo is still only 27 years old, so he's still in his prime, but he is getting up there in age. So if the Rangers truly believe in his skill set, then I think they would put talented players around him, like get some pitchers for him, get a third baseman. Don't have Elvis Andrews be your third baseman, for crying out loud. I think he would be a great utility player. Get talent around Gallo. I think this is pretty similar to what happened to the Braves a few years ago. Like, they could have traded Freddie Freeman and they could have gotten some talented prospects, but they kept Freddie Freeman and look where they are now. I know they didn't win a World Series, but they're a playoff team and they're going to be back to the playoffs next year, most likely. And they didn't have to trade Freddie Freeman. I mean, if we trade Gallo this offseason, one, his value isn't even that high right now because he came off of a bad year with the bat. I mean, he won a Gold Glove, but his bat wasn't that great this year. So we wouldn't get the most value for Gallo, and say all the prospects that we get are busts. Then there goes wasted talent because Gallo last year in 2019 was looking like an MVP caliber player. So do we really want to trade Gallo for players that could really be busts? I mean, they may not be busts. They could help the Rangers and help the Rangers get to a World Series. You never know. But I think the best move for the Rangers is to keep Gallo, kind of like the Braves did with Freddie Freeman, and put talented players around Gallo.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. He is the franchise man for sure. So moving on to the third thing that we believe the Texas Rangers need to do is get some new ownership. This is always a gripe of mine. It's probably more of a gripe than it is a fact, but I do have some valid points here. So first of all, obviously it's not in anyone's control except for theirs. They have to be the ones to sell the team and all that. But it is very clear that they are only focused on money and money alone because they do not let, JD and the rest of the front office kind of do their thing. I totally understand not recklessly spending. For example, Anthony Rendon was probably a dodged bullet that they didn't end up getting him because they were about $10 million short or something like that. But the biggest red flag from these owners is the new stadium. It looks amazing. I've been there. I took a tour of it. We didn't need it. The other one was 25 years old. It was the 25th year as they were shutting it down. So they did not need to do that. Like I said, it's really just a gripe for me, but having a new set of eyes on a team is never a bad thing. Just take a look at the Mets. They finally got rid of, I think it was the Cohens were the ones who owned the Mets, something like that. They were not liked by the fan base. And, that doesn't mean the Mets are going to magically win 100 games next year, but they can finally kind of move on and head in a new direction.
The fourth thing that we think the Rangers need to do in order to get back to the glory days, they never really had a glory day because they never won a World Series, but they need to sign a big free agent. And I mean, maybe the ownership is being frugal to sign a big free agent in this loaded 2020 free agency class. I don't know. They just might be super thrifty. But I mean, this free agency class in 2020 is pretty historic. I mean, you have 5 all-star shortstops. And in the same free agency class, you have Francisco Lindor, Trevor Bauer, Javier Baez, Corey Seager, and Carlos Correa. And all of those guys, they can help out both offensively and defensively. I know some have used trash cans to help out, and some just came off a bad season in general. But I mean, those guys can still help out the Rangers. I mean, I personally like Francisco Lindor. I think he would be a great personality and just a great athlete to have on the club. Like we said, the Rangers need pitching as well. And there's some really respectable veteran names out on the market. We got Justin Verlander, Zach Greinke, Clayton Kershaw, Marcus Stroman, and Noah Syndergaard. I mean, most of those guys are up there in age. However, I think the one that I like is Clayton Kershaw. He's from Texas. He's only going to be 34 whenever he becomes a free agent. And he's just proven year in and year out, he's the guy you want at the top of the rotation. So I think the Rangers have some money to spend. I think they can get an elite shortstop, 2020 free agency class. We're going to have to see how Izzy plays this year. And however Izzy plays is probably dictates what the Rangers are going to spend in the offseason. And then, like we said, the Rangers need pitching, and I think they can spend money on an older guy like Kershaw. So we'll see what happens in that offseason. I don't think they're going to sign a big free agent this year in 2021 like Bauer or Marcell Ozuna. I don't think it just fits for the Rangers. But we'll see if the young players like Izzy or Trevino or Tavares, any of those guys, if they make strides, then a big free agent makes perfect sense for the Rangers in 2022.
Yeah, definitely. I would love to see them get any one of those guys on that list. Good class for sure. And moving on to the last point here, I called it let the kids play. And what I mean by that is they need to let their prospects loose when they're ready. Now, they do have a bad tendency of over adjusting for this, as I am going to discuss here. They had Odor, who was rushed at like 19. And, he had his couple years, but even in those good years, his batting average wasn't all that great. As well as Profar, who has actually kind of recovered some on the Padres, but they started him way too young on the Rangers just to get all the hype around him going. And he's turned out okay. But my point here is you do not want to rush the players, but you do not want to hold them back just because a veteran has a starting role. I think a good example on the Rangers is someone like Elvis Andrus. If we magically got some shortstop prospect who is hitting 300, is playing like Javier Baez or any of those guys who have the electric arms and stuff, let them play over Elvis. I know he's got a big contract still, but you got to let the young guys loose. Many of the current MLB teams have guys in their low 20s, Tatis Jr., Acuna, all those guys, just because they let them loose when they were ready. And most of that was circumstantial. They didn't have much of a choice. But right now, the Rangers don't have much of a choice. They don't have much to lose. They haven't been competitive in a few years, and they got this new ballpark that they opened without a winning team. So might as well give it a couple games, especially if we get a full season, hopefully here in 2021. But they have started to let these young guys play a little more recently. Gallo, Izzy, Scott Heineman before they traded him, Nick Solak, other guys like that. And they definitely need to keep doing that. So it will take some little bit of luck, a little bit of magic here. But if they can do even 3 or 4 of the things that we just talked about on this list, I think they can get back to a World Series and playing one in their new ballpark that is not just 2 other teams that aren't the Rangers. So that's going to be it for this video, though, guys. If you enjoyed, definitely let us know, and we can do more collaborations like this. But also go check out Cullen's channel. We did a video about pitching on his channel, and just subscribe to him as well. He's got a lot of good news, quick updates, all that good stuff. So anything else you'd like to say here, Cullen?
I just want to thank you for doing this collab with me. I really enjoyed talking about Rangers because I think the Rangers fan base really deserves it. So I think we can do a lot more of these in the future. And I thank you for having me on the channel.
Yeah, no problem. This was a good experience. So once again, guys, go check out the video we did on his channel and subscribe to him. Subscribe to me as well. And I will talk to you soon.